Earlier this year, the FCC won a great victory when it upheld net neutrality. However, in some of the more recent cases, didn't go so well for the FCC. Now, The Verge reports that the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit said the FCC is not able to essentially remove state laws that prevent the construction of municipal broadband networks. Now, okay, so let me kind of break that down, right? A municipal broadband network is basically a state-run broadband network that would compete against some of the big cable giants. Now, obviously, they don't like that. Now, what was interesting is that there were two small towns, the towns of Wilson and Chattanooga, that had actually petitioned the FCC for permission to build these local broadband networks, basically in order to increase competition, maybe help service and lower some of the prices. Well, of course, as I said, they didn't like that in the cable industry. Now, let me explain what the deal is right now. See, right now, broadband providers have regional monopolies, right? Now, for example, I live in Michigan. Now, in Michigan, I've got a choice of either Charter or Comcast. They're essentially both the same. They're kind of slow and expensive, but I'll get on that too a little bit, but in a little bit more detail later on in the segment. Now, there are some places where you don't even get a choice at all for what cable broadband provider that you want. And some places it's Comcast or sucks to be you. That's a problem. That's a regional monopoly. Now, let's see. For Wilson and Chattanooga, they wanted to build this. However, they couldn't because state laws had prevented them from doing so. So basically what happened is that these laws that were written on behalf of broadband companies banned the state from banned the cities in the state for making their own provider, for building their own municipal broadband network. Look, in Tennessee, for example, is the only state that has these laws. In total, 19 states banned cities from building their own municipal broadband public networks. Now, in this case, the FCC's argument was that it had the power to preempt these state laws when it came to removing barriers to broadband investment and competition. Now, that's, of course, inside the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The FCC is saying, look, we've got that power to remove that barrier. You're setting up a barrier to competition in this area. We would like to remove it. However, the court argued that the commission is not explicitly granted permission to overrule the state. So you've got this issue of, the FCC being a government agency and the states enacting laws that basically protect these large providers. And, well, since the FCC is a government official or a government agency, it can't override those state laws. So basically, SOL, right? Now, the article notes that while government agencies are generally given deference to interpret their own powers where a law has left them unclear, as in this case, the court determined that it isn't the case in this situation because it would be going so far as to overrule a state law. And that, the court said, requires that the agency's power be clearly stated in federal law. So since it's not explicitly stated, they can't do anything. Now, this is not only a disaster for the FCC, but for regular people as well. Regular people like me, like you probably, who pay too much for crappy internet. Now, let me explain why I call this crappy internet. Well, the United States, out of a ranking of 33 countries by the OECD on the measure of speed and affordability of broadband internet, the United States, out of 33 countries, ranks not number 1, we're not number 2, we're not number 5, 10, nope. Try 30. We rank 30th. Now, I want to show you guys a graph here of the, it shows a comparison of different OECD countries when it comes to speed and affordability of internet access. Now, take a look at that. Jesus Christ, man. We're at the bottom of the list. In South Korea, look at South Korea at the top. They have near speeds of nearly 100 megabits a second when it comes to downloads, for a price of less than $20. Now go down and look at America, where you have an average of 45 megabits per second for about $100. Jesus, Lord mercy, we're getting ripped off. And look at Slovenia. They've got faster and cheaper broadband than we do. Hungary, Japan, all cheaper for the same as what we have here. Even Canada, man. Canada is probably the closest one. And look, I've got a Canadian friend. He tells me all the time how terrible their internet is there. And yet they pay less than we do. Jesus. And you know why? It's because we have no competition. The cable companies have consolidated and now they run the market and lobby our local politicians in order to get them laws that ban their competition. See, this is what happens when you have money in politics along with an unregulated free market. The same kind of free market that conservatives keep calling for. See, the cable companies and the politicians, they love this because they end up getting paid. The cable companies get no competition. And, you know, who gets fucked over? You and me. That sucks. And that's why privatization sucks. Look, it's my opinion that the internet should be considered a public entity or a public utility, where private entities should be competing with public entities and for each other for the best service, speed, and price. Now you might say, well, that's incredibly unfair. I mean, the government can do it at cost, whereas a private company has to make profit. Look, I have no problem with a company rolling out some extra perks, really trying to compete to get people to choose them. Maybe they could innovate and do even faster speeds, like they do in nearly every other country that has broadband access. But right now, that's not what we're doing. That's why we're ranked 30th out of 33 countries. Because we're not doing that. These companies have no incentive to innovate and no incentive to lower their prices. There is no competition. None. And that's the problem. And introducing a public utility or regulating them as a public utility and having them compete alongside private entities, private companies, that's a way to introduce real competition into the market and help the market actually become better, not only for the companies, but for you and I, but for the people who, actually use this internet. Now look, obviously this ruling is terrible because it allows these companies to shut down competition so they can continue to rob us for slower service than you get in Slovenia. And all of it comes down to the money. You've got to follow the money. As one former FCC commissioner by the name of Michael Kopp says, quote, "Let's be clear, industry-backed state laws to block municipal broadband only exist because pliant legislators are listening to their big cable and big telecom paymasters. This decision does not benefit our broadband nation." And once again, here's a situation where it comes down really to money and politics. And that is why you have to get the money out of politics. We can change these laws and allow these municipal broadband companies to spring up and encourage real competition. Hey everybody, if you like this video, then please like this video and share. And if you want to see more like this, then please hit that subscribe button below.